I guess I am feeling a little bit about doing better about doing this time. I don't feel nearly as uneasy as I did the first time. However, it is a bit chillier today than it was the other day. But welcome back to, what is this? Backyard Lectures, number 2. And I'm anxious to share some things. Let's move forward. And I just need to keep an eye on the time. So I managed to keep this within the time frame of YouTube allowances for my type of account. Hopefully everybody is on their way or finished and nearly complete with reading your revised essay in front of the class. And let's keep some of those ideas in mind about what you want to do when you have all the time to write this. That this should be a letter-perfect essay. You should have primary and secondary quotes that support what you're trying to do. You should have a clear thesis. Your vocabulary should be academic. You should use the dates like IB wants you to use those dates. You don't want to be too narrative. These are all things that you guys are all well versed in, and we've continued to do this, and we'll continue to do it more. And when we look at, you know, what you all did with the essays and continuing to do with this, you know, I want to lead that into what will be another round of essays that we'll have in due time, which is going to be looking at this period of time after 1953, extending really up to, let's say, the 90s, but, you know, whether you want to call it détente, whether you want to call it, you know, this new relative peaceful coexistence, and let's just never lose sight of the fact that as much rhetoric and as much bantering and seemingly hatred there seems to be going, there was never the big war. Let's always keep that in mind. And you know, one of my geeking out history moments here a while back was, you know, I dug this book off of my my shelf at home, and I couldn't remember if I gave everybody one of these or they were in the back behind the glass closet where there are some of these. And what I want to do is, again, kind of touching off of that essay that you just did and moving into some of the pieces from this book that I want you to look over. And the first thing is that I think when some people write about the origins of the Cold War, they make it to, you know, singular, where it's US, USSR. And the real diplomatic world has a lot of other characters that are supporting what is obviously the two biggest groups on that side. And I think, as we've made mention, that the Soviet sphere of influence, which dominated Eastern Europe, was not nearly as rich, it was not nearly as developed as the Western side of Italy to Sweden, let's say. So when we look at these big picture of what's happening, and when we look at post-53, we see or post-49, we see a really changing dynamic and how this game is going to be played. And the first thing that we want to recognize is, I believe, when you read the Sinai-Soviet split section in this book, it is a marvelous collection of documents that really expose the reasons why, that go just beyond the historical domination of parts of Manchuria, the Soviet, Russian, Chinese border, you know, the whole Russian Eastern expansion movement that collided with China for centuries. So it goes beyond that, and you look at some of these words that they use, some of the adjectives in some of these documents. They'll talk about reactionaries, and as you read the jargon that they use back and forth with each other, it's phenomenal to think that, really unbeknownst to the Western powers, that rift between China and the Soviet Union was deep-seated, and it becomes a new bit of exposure about what was thought of as a monolithic communist world that wasn't monolithic. We have competing factions out there. Yugoslavia competing with the Soviet Union is not like China competing with the Soviet Union. China holds a whole lot more clout than other sort of groups that are on the side of Russia, and it also is geographically far away. And as you read through these documents, and they talk about how when Khrushchev denounced Stalin, that Mao saw himself as, with the cult of personality, doing whatever necessary to hold on to the power, to be the great helmsman. And when you see this view of Soviet and Chinese documents exposing this real clash between them, that even in the 60s, while the Vietnam War is going on, China is dismissing the Soviets as Western imperialists, that they are doing nothing different than what the West has been doing, and that they are really the torchbearers of communism, and it's not the Soviets. You've become too passé. And as you read those documents, I want you to recognize how strategically different that makes this game of East-West. So if we look at a chessboard, and we've got all of these pieces facing each other, and everybody has different moves and different powers and different abilities to help this group, this table is essentially moving this direction. I think when you look at what happens when China comes in, it's almost like there's a new level that not only are we not only going this way, we're going from other directions, and maybe we have a whole new level down here. Because as you see with this rift of the Chinese and the Soviets, that the United States, beginning in the early 70s with Henry Kissinger and Richard Nixon, they make a change of power in politics in America that would be akin to Obama signing a peace agreement with Iran tomorrow. China goes from being not even recognized to the United States to giving panda bears to the National Zoo in Washington, D.C. That relations begin there in 1972, and all of a sudden, the two now is a lot of different people and a lot of different dynamics in how the post-détente days are going to materialize. That China, its rift creates a new opening with America, and with America's buying power, we can see where that has led China as we talk more about China and their economic reforms, and how, in 1972 to now, they have gained in prestige and power and wealth and in intellectualness, and becoming more open to society, and obviously there's more pressures for China to do that as well. The other things that I really want you to look at with this book is, you've got a Hungarian crisis, you have a Berlin Wall, you have a number of other crises that fall into that period of time that you just did these projects on. And when we look at that grouping of time, 49 up to, Bay of Pigs crisis, which seems to encapsulate, 12, 13 year period of time. That's not a lot. But when you look at that period of time, and you've got Hungary and Suez and, the Israeli problems and what becomes an oil issue, that it's looked at as a period of time that you will generally have to put together a few events from that 12-year period of time, and those events can be used in an essay. A lot of times when IB puts out essays on that period of time, they talk about, was there a thaw? And you're choosing 2 or 3 arguments from one angle or another to show that there was or there wasn't. So it's practicality for you as you see all of those projects, is that that's sort of an area where you've got to see a number of different sides of what's happening and make some judgments on that. This book as well does a nice job of looking at all of those different crises with a lot of really good primary sources. And then the last thing that I do want you to look at right now is, one, there's just some good cartoons in the back that we all like, and then at the end there is another historiography of the Cold War. This is something you need to keep working on. And in that last section, I think it's number 17, the historiography, this is a post-revisionist book. I believe it's 1999 was its last publishing date for this one. So it gives you some more historiography, and I want to make sure that you look at that. With the geekiness of history at source away, I want to now bring out another book that I have. But first, Backyard Lectures. How long do you think I've been talking? Okay, I've got a few minutes. In the last few minutes, I want to dedicate to internal assessment and what you're working on right now with IA. This is you and your business and you being a little miniature historian. So follow those examples that we've talked about. Look at those examples that are on Moodle. But yesterday I picked up a book that I decided to read, and I thought, wow, this could be really good IA material for somebody. The book is called Brotherhood of the Bomb. The Tangled Lives and Loyalties of Robert Oppenheimer, Ernest Lawrence, and Edward Teller. And it's about the story of the atomic bomb through these three central characters. If you did this, if you read this book, and this can be any book, you now have one source for the part that you're going to do a OPVL on a source. This book is one of those. And you find another source that's going to work that way. So when you're trying to find that IA, find it through the source of a book you want to read, a series documentary that you want to use, a movie about an event that you want to use. If you find one anchor document, you can make that be the centerpiece of your IA. And I leave you with the IA thinking about what to do as a bee is flying around the camera. If you can make it practical for paper 3, that's the best angle to take. Okay? If you can use it in paper 2, it's applicable. But if you use it in paper 3, that's an area where you need to be a little bit richer and more developed in the way some of these essays are. So, can't wait to see you guys. I'm getting healthier. I just can't wait to come home and see you soon. Bye-bye.